As young officers, the blood of revolutionists runs through our veins. Rizal was only 26 years old when he wrote No Limitangere and El Filibusterismo that set the nationalist revolution in our country. Andres Bonifacio was only 29 years old when he founded the Katipunan. Emilio Aguinaldo was only 26 years old when he proclaimed himself the first president of the Philippines. And Gregorio del Pilar, the famous young general, was short of 21 years when he died defending the rear guard of Aguinaldo in Tirad Pass. This lesson aims to inspire you about our revolutionary past in order that you may fully appreciate our evolution as a young nation.
The world as we know today is a product of change, some violent and some not so violent. For the next few minutes, we will be presenting you a subject on revolutionary and counter-revolutionary warfare that in some way or another shape our country as we know it today. There are 6 major works consulted in the preparation of this lecture, the oldest of which was written in 1967, and the latest is a publication of our very own Doctrine Center, Training and Doctrine Command in 2005. At the end of this session, we hope to give you the initial push to understand the ins and outs of revolutionary war and the response to it. Along the way, we are going to present to you famous examples of successful revolutionary wars and counter-revolutionary wars. We will close the presentation with an overview of the response of the government of the Republic of the Philippines to the current insurgency we are facing. The outline of the presentation is as shown. We will start with the nature of revolutionary war, covering the characteristics, essentials, and patterns, the counter-revolutionary warfare, and the examples of such warfare and the government response to it. As you can see, revolution is not new to mankind, and even the famous philosopher Aristotle has something to say about it. According to him, any revolution is the desire for equality when men think they are equal to others who have more than themselves. Revolutionary war is known by many names, but the end state remains the same: seizure of political power. Depending on the popularized aims, it is known as insurgency, people's war, war of national liberation, and in the Philippines, it is known as the National Democratic Revolution. Revolutionary war is primarily a political and social process, and so the use of force is only one of the tools. It is protracted, and the transition from peace to war is almost imperceptible. There are no defined front lines. Confrontation takes place at all levels, in the physical up to the psychological plane of battle. Being a war of ideas, the principal battleground of a revolutionary war is the human terrain, the human mind. To be viable, a revolution must have the following: a revolutionary theory that will unify the rebels and the people to fight for the unified cause. With organization, the rest will follow: support from the people, bases, mobility, and even supplies. The current communist insurgency in the country is based on the revolutionary theories of Karl Marx, Lenin, and Mao Zedong. All of these theories were unified and interpreted by Joma Sison in relation to the Philippines as a semi-feudal and semi-colonial country. All of the CPP-NPA thoughts, words, and actions follow this line. One of the philosophical bases of communist revolutionary idea is dialectic materialism, that posits that everything has two sides that are constantly in conflict and that it is the source of change and development. Then these changes are limited to material things because, according to them, belief in the supernatural is not rational. Another concept at the base of communist revolutionary idea is historical materialism. They interpreted history only on the basis of the material aspect and so arrive at a different perception of history that is supportive of their ideals. This is history according to Marx. Development of humanity will ultimately end from where it started, communism. The second essential element of a revolutionary war is the cause to fight for. It must be simple, yet inspiring and convincing. It is usually derived from abstract themes that is hard to quantify, like freedom, nationalism, human rights and self-determination, colonial oppression and imperialism, and equal opportunity. They are popular and have a broad appeal to the people, but in the end, these ideas and ideals will be used as a justification for any and all violence resulting from the revolution. Organization is a basic requirement for a revolutionary movement. It must have a political and a military arm. A broad united front is an added value, and it is not only a source of support but also a source of protection. For maximum effect, these organizations must be replicated from the national level down to the lowest geographical and political unit of the country. The Philippine experience is the proof of this. A revolutionary movement without the support of the people will not succeed. The people provide them with the basic necessities like food, information, and recruits. An example of this is the analogy of fish in the water, wherein the fishes are the rebels and the water represents the people supporting them. Revolutionaries also need safe areas or sanctuaries from where to conduct their tactical offensive. The bases are usually located at the tribe boundaries of the political subdivisions. Another probable safe base area of the insurgents are the proposed peace zones throughout the country. This is what revolutionaries value most: mobility or freedom of action. Freedom of action to conduct their ideological, political, and organizational works, and to conduct their tactical offensives. By having unrestricted mobility, they retain the initiative and maintain security. The supplies of the revolutionaries come from foreign and local sources. Their priority is firearms, ammunition, communication equipment, medical supplies, money, and clothing. Revolutionary war usually follow the same stages or patterns starting from phase 1, organization, consolidation, and preservation, phase 2, progressive expansion, and phase 3, decision. In the Philippine setting, it is known as the strategic defensive, strategic stalemate, and the strategic counteroffensive. Revolutionaries usually start by following the dictum, the preservation of oneself and the destruction of the enemy is the basis for all military principles. They are now slowly transforming it to a new concept of will to fight, into the willingness to suffer and inflict casualties of the terrorists. The answer to this is really simple. If the revolutionaries are willing to die for their cause, then the counter-revolutionaries have no choice but to kill them. We start the part on counter-revolutionary war by a quote from Ayn Rand regarding government. It is the incumbent or the present government that usually conducts the counter-revolutionary wars. Just like revolutionary war, counter-revolutionary war is known by many names. Simply put, it is everything that the government does to respond to revolutionary warfare. The political aim of counter-revolutionary war is to restore the lawful government and reach a political solution, while the military aim is to defeat the insurgent soonest. The paradox here is that the political leadership and the armed forces usually conducts the campaign without agreeing and clearly stating the purpose and the aim of military operations. The short-term political and military aim of the campaign and the long-term political aim of the campaign. The end result is what you can see in the Philippine experience. To be viable, counterinsurgency campaign must have the following essential elements: civil-military understanding for the end state, joint command and structure, good intelligence, mobility, and training. Civil-military understanding is necessary for everybody concerned to understand that there is no purely military battlefield in counterinsurgency warfare. That civil government and military operations are part of one plan against a common enemy. This must be understood at all levels, from the head of state down to the company commander in the field. Without this basic understanding, the chance of succeeding decreases. Joint command and control. This is an application of one of the principles of war: unity of command for coordination of efforts. The civil, police, and military efforts should be leveraged to obtain the maximum effect on the enemy at all planes of battle. We now borrow the ideas from Sun Tzu, knowing the enemy. How well do we know the enemy? Do you have an idea of how he thinks and what he will do given a situation? Without such knowledge, the chance of success in any battle or engagement is less than 50%. Mobility. This is going back to the basics of fighting, the 4 F's. Find them, fix them, fight them, and finish them. You cannot fight an enemy you cannot find and fix, so you must have both strategic and tactical mobility to match the enemy's capability. Coupled with good intelligence, this will have real-time engagements. Training for counterinsurgency must be carried out for all, not only for the military and police, but also for all government entities and personnel. Remember, there is no purely military battlefield in counterinsurgency. The most important part of the training is knowing the enemy. These are the examples of successful revolutionary wars and counter-revolutionary wars. The Boer War in South Africa in 1899 to 1902. The British, reinforced by armies from their other colonies, won the battles by using the scorched earth policy and concentration camps. The South African republics became part of the British Empire, but in the end, they gained the independence as the Union of South Africa. Lawrence of Arabia, 1917 to 1918. A success story of Arabs against the Ottoman Turks using guerrilla warfare, but in the end, it is the British who won control of the territories left by the Turks. French Indochina. The story of French Indochina is divided into two: the First Indochina War and the American Vietnam War. On both wars, the revolutionaries won against the French and the Americans. The turning point of the First Indochina War is the Battle of Bien Bien Phu, wherein the forces of Bo Nguyen Giap defeated the French Foreign Legion. In the Vietnam War, it is the Tet Offensive that did it again under the leadership of Bo Nguyen Giap. The emergency in Malaya in 1948 to 1960. The British won despite fielding only about 35,000 men in the field. The emergency lost its anti-colonial color when the British said that the insurgency is the main hindrance for decolonization. The emergency was formally ended on 31 July 1960. Malaya was then on the road to their independence. Huk Balahap Campaign. the government of the Republic of the Philippines won over the Partido Comunista ng Pilipinas using the right hand and the left hand effort made famous by President Magsaysay. The end of the hooks led the way to the establishment of the Communist Party of the Philippines and the New People's Army under Joma Sison. As the saying goes, you cannot win them all. You win some and you lose some. In conclusion, I have this quote: revolutions originate and prosper under different conditions involving man's dissatisfaction with his lot. It is both a political and social process and must be countered not only by military operations but also by corresponding positive socio-political actions. We will now go to an overview to the government of the Republic of the Philippines' response to insurgency. Our government is actually trying to apply the conclusion in the last slide, as we shall see. These are the legal bases for counterinsurgency. It started with the Constitution and the National Security Strategy. Then we have the following documents: the Executive Order Number 21, institutionalizing the internal security system, and the National Internal Security Plan. We also have the Executive Order Number 110 or Number 110 that defines the support relationship between the armed forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police. Finally, we have the Operation Bantay Laya and its successors. Oplan Bantay Laya calls for holistic approach at the strategic level while applying the clear hold, consolidate, and develop methodology at the operational level. The end state of all of this is a psychologically and physically secure environment conducive to equitable and sustainable development. The components of the strategy of holistic approach are political, legal, and diplomatic, information, economic, social and psychosocial, and security and peace and order. As of this date, only the Department of National Defense and the Department of Interior and Local Government have implementing plans to operationalize the strategy. Other agencies may have their own programs, but there is no convergence noted. An example of this is the Kalahi program. The broad objectives of the strategy of holistic approach are as shown: decisively defeat main armed groups, dismantle the politico-military infrastructure of the threat, defend communities, protect the people, and secure vital installations, reestablish government control and authority in contested area. These objectives are all doable and attainable in time. All it needs is a convergence of efforts from the concerned agencies. There is no doubt that the armed services are doing their part. The life and blood shed by our soldiers are proof enough. On the clear, hold, consolidate, and develop operational methodology, the lead and support agencies are indicated. But the misconception that ISO is a military problem still pervades other agencies. The result is that there is an over-reliance on the AFP and the PNP to do all the phases of the clear, hold, consolidate, and develop methodology. We are into this counterinsurgency for almost 4 decades with no clear outcome. The insurgents may not be able to defeat us, but the government forces cannot win either.